Good evening, this is BelGeode and we are back. And you might be wondering, why am I on a 737 on final to SeaTac Airport in Washington State, USA? Well folks, I can finally let the cat out of the bag. Yes, I did attend the world reveal of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Myself and a select few YouTubers and media folks, folks that have websites related to flight simulation, and of course flight simulation magazines, we were all invited by Microsoft to go out to Seattle and get a hands-on of the brand new Microsoft Flight Simulator that is due out sometime in 2020. They paid for our way out there. They put us up in an awesome hotel, and even though we only had one full day to actually get hands-on, ask whatever questions we could, it was an absolutely amazing experience. And this video, I'm going to chronicle what happened in those 3 days that I spent in Seattle. So, buckle up folks, we're on short final, and be prepared to be amazed by this new flight sim.
So we are here. This is the Hyatt Regency Lake Washington, which is literally on the lake, just to the east of Seattle, Tacoma, or SeaTac Airport, and also just southeast of downtown Seattle. Mr. Sergio's here. Mr. Tristan's inside. He's heading up to his room. His room is ready. Our room is not ready, so we've got to wait. And Mr. Frugal's even here. And he went to the bar, so we're going to meet him shortly thereafter. But yeah, we're just kind of checking it out. It's a beautiful day in Seattle here. Look at that. I expected rain, something competitive with Pennsylvania, but no, the sun is shining. The clouds look absolutely beautiful. There's evergreen trees everywhere. It's just paradise. Okay, so we are at the bar, and as you can see over there is Renton Airport and parking for the 737 MAX. There's a whole bunch of them here. You know what happened with the 737 MAX. Yeah, they're all here. You can hear boats in the background, you can hear planes in the background, you can probably see way off in the distance there's a plane that's taken off from SeaTac because they're heading out north this evening. It's like, what time is it? I've got to do some math here. I have not set my watch to Pacific Standard Time, so I'm still on Eastern Time. It says that it is like 6:35, so we gotta like take 3 hours off. It's like 3:35 here, so it's mid-afternoon, and as you can see, it's very beautiful. So Renton Airport is right there. And one thing that we've noticed just in the hour that we've been sitting here at the bar is there are a lot of Cessnas and so on taking off from Renton Airport and just basically flying circuits. So they're going airborne, that's their upwind leg, and then they're going crosswind and downwind and all that kind of stuff, and they're going behind the hotel for their base leg, and then they'll come back in because of course everyone's taking off to the north. North is that direction. You may notice Seattle way off in the distance there. That's Seattle. That's downtown Seattle, or at least a portion of it. And this is of course Lake Washington. This is the lake that I showed you before. So yeah, gorgeous. And Mr. Frugal, who is here, was telling us a little story. Apparently off in that direction, I'm like purposely zooming the camera in and out because this is a GoPro and doesn't really have a zoom. Apparently Mr. Bill Gates lives in that direction. I guess that is an island, this little hill that you're seeing in front. And if you were to go down the lake that way and then kind of make a right, hopefully you can see my hand making the right there, that's where Bill Gates lives. So yeah, really cool stuff. This is, in my opinion, an aviation geek's paradise. I mean, you got these guys here. The Boeing factory is literally right across the street from this hotel where I'm standing right now. It's that cool. It is that cool. And then, of course, my esteemed colleagues are here. You can see them there. There's Mr. Sergio, there's Mr. Frugal, and we've even got Mr. Nova Wing 24 right there. So yeah, the band's all here, we're all having fun, and we haven't even started to get into the whole reason why we're here, which that will come soon.
So bright and early in the morning on the 19th, we all showered and got dressed and put on our, I guess our Thursday best, and we hopped on the valet shuttle, as you can see here, that would take us basically around Renton Airport from the east side, where the hotel is, to the west side, where this place is. This is Rainier Flight Service, and this is where Microsoft decided to have their big to-do. And honestly, I couldn't think of a better location for us to actually come to on this morning.
Okay, and we are here, Renton Airport. Woohoo! We're heading into the building, the Rainier Flight Service. And as you can see on the way in, there's a whole bunch of 737 Maxes and so on and so forth. And all the GA you can handle. There's even a helicopter here. I had to point it out to Sergio. It's an R66. So yeah, cool stuff. And here's Mr. Nova Wing. Recording me, recording him. Alright, we're about to head inside. Here's the rest of the crew. Okay, let's get this party started.
Now before I begin, a couple of things that I just want to get out of the way here. So what you're going to be seeing is not actually footage from me flying Microsoft Flight Sim. We were not allowed to actually record video from the computers that we were using to fly Microsoft Flight Sim. But Microsoft kindly provided us with footage that we can use for our videos. So you're probably going to be seeing this footage not only in my video, but in a few others' videos around the internet, so just be advised of that. Second of all, we were not allowed to take pictures of like the interface and so on and so forth, because obviously everything is still a work in progress, so it really wouldn't be fair to them if they would have pictures go out that honestly are probably not even going to be in play over the next couple of months. One thing I do want to point out, do you see that little question mark there pointing to that empty grass lot? I had to give Microsoft hell for that, because this is the Seattle area that you're looking at. This is literally the area that we were that day. They missed the hotel. I'm not kidding. They modeled every single thing around Seattle and it all looks absolutely flawless, but they missed the Hyatt Regency Lake Washington. So I had to point that out to them, and that was kind of a running joke throughout the course of the day. So hopefully that will be fixed by the time we all have access to like alphas and betas. Bear in mind, this is all pre-alpha stuff. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about are going to be the technology that they're using, why Microsoft decided to do this now, the tools that they're using, and some of the partnerships that they've got going on. So just to touch on these really quick, and then we'll go into more detail a little later in the video. Technology. They've been working on this thing for about 5 years now, and they told me that it actually started as a HoloLens HoloTour demo in VR of the Seattle area. They literally blew each other's minds basically when they presented it to the higher-ups, and then all of a sudden started turning the plane and came to the realization, oh my god, we can actually do flight simming again. Why did they decide to do it now? because they said that enough data is available in real time, whether that be scenery information, flight information, weather information, pretty much everything you can think of to make a realistic flight sim. Now is the time. That's why they want to do it. So they've got Bing available as a tool and about 2 petabytes of information, and then they've also got Azure, which is your storage and delivery at low latency. I'm going to put an asterisk next to that, and we're going to discuss that a little bit further. But for now, I want to kind of prep you for the other very important part of this day. So I'm not going to lie to you folks, when all of us got to Seattle and got settled into the hotel and started talking with each other and finished our, oh wow, you're here too, kind of thing, we all came to pretty much the same conclusion. We fully expected to be disappointed by Microsoft. We got into that bus and we headed over to Rainier Flight Service that morning with the full expectation that anything they could say was going to be something that would make us be like, well, okay, why are we even here? But here's the best part. We were wrong. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I can speak for myself when I say I was wrong. I had no idea that this was the level of detail that they were working with here. And even more importantly, the physics involved. Microsoft hit upon a genius plan with this little get-together that they had for us here. Number one, they gave us the technical information, which I'm going to go through in a moment here. Number two, they allowed us to have hands-on so that we could actually feel what was going on with the aircraft and with the flight sim itself, including the airflow and everything else. But the pièce de résistance, what they did after we had the opportunity to fly around the Renton area, which you're seeing stock footage of right now, they paired us up with pilots at Rainier Flight Service, got us into real-life Cessnas, and told us to go flying for about an hour and a half. Needless to say, that was truly the highlight of my journey. I mean, don't get me wrong, this flight sim is absolutely amazing, and I have to admit I am a believer now. But yeah, being able to compare it with real life, not to mention get an extra hour to add to my real life logbook at the end of it, absolutely incredible. But you know what? Don't just take my word for it. Let's find out how what you're seeing now compares to real life. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me when I tell you, Microsoft came to slay. You want to talk about influencing the influencers. First, we get to sit in the flight sim and check it out with all new equipment and pretty much top of the line stuff. Then you put me in the newest aircraft in Rainier Flight Service with the most awesome and beautiful cat as my flight instructor, my CFI. There's just no way I could even say anything bad about your product at this point in time. But for real though, did it match up to real life? Yes, I'm going to tell you right now, it did. And there were 4 major talking points that they had, which I'm going to go over. So the world itself is being designed by a French company called Asobo Studios. And these guys are no strangers to making video game worlds. They have made, I believe, what is the largest console game world in history. I think it was in the Guinness World Book of Records or something like that. But what they've done for this flight sim is they've actually modeled everything, the entire planet, using Bing Maps and 3D scans of the cities and photoreal elevation data, all the airports in the world that we know of, all 40,000 plus are in there. And more importantly, one of the things that they kept harping on was the fact that VFR is now truly possible using accurate roads and rivers to help you with your navigation. What they've done is they've augmented the Bing Maps using Azure AI machine learning. So anytime something changes with the data that they have, they can easily update it. They do have basically like AutoGen and terrain textures, but they're so seamlessly mixed in with the real world information that honestly, I can't tell it apart. They're trees. You know I'm a big, huge fan of trees. They've got 1.5 trillion of them. Now I know what you're probably saying, but Bell, 2 petabytes of information, there's no way any of us are gonna store that on our computers. They're gonna charge us a subscription to download it. No. Let me reiterate this. No, they will not be charging a subscription for you to access this service. As a matter of fact, they plan on doing adaptive streaming and other things that will allow you to not only, be able to fly online, but also to fly offline. So let's say, for example, you only fly in a given region. We're going to use one of my favorites, the Caribbean, Jamaica. They want to make it so that you can download that particular region, have that locally, and that's where you fly. And then, of course, you've got everything else going on, the real world physics and everything that come into play. And let me tell you, that's some physics. One of the things that I noticed when I was sitting in the flight sim is the presence of turbulence and thermals and things like that. It's all modeled, folks. It's all real. Now, when we talk about the sky, I need you to understand something here. What they've managed to achieve is a brand new code. This is not a rehash of FS 2004 or even FSX or even FSW, as I had suspected initially. This is all new code here, folks. And what they've done is they've done like a completely new atmospheric simulation and physics simulation. And I think that's the kind of thing that sets it apart. And the way they were describing it, it almost sounds exactly like what X-Plane does. So what are some of the things that you can expect with this new sky in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Well, aside from the most obvious thing, the volumetric clouds, which Lord knows every flight sim needs, there are other things like the new night engine. The star positions are present and accurate. So all the constellations that you're used to seeing, if you look up on a nice clear sky at night, they're in there. They're in there. In addition to which, we've got 3D scattering when it comes to water, like rain and so on and so forth. There's freaking rainbows in this flight sim. I am not kidding you. As a matter of fact, I'll probably have a couple of pictures that I'll put up throughout the course of the video, and perhaps also in the closing credits, where you'll see the actual rainbow. And you see this thing forming real time, depending on the sun's position. That, I think, probably amazed me the most about their atmospheric engine that they're working on. And the important takeaway, too, is whereas sims such as like X-Plane and so on are used to modeling maybe one layer of wind or 3 layers of wind, this thing models 32 layers with density, shale, and fuzziness. So we're talking real and accurate cumulonimbus clouds, for example, here. And they can model everything up to about a tropical storm. One of the things that I've always found lacking in flight sims has been the absence of things like humidity. No one really thinks about humidity, and even X-Plane only has that, generic haze. This new flight sim actually takes into consideration humidity. So in speaking of aerodynamics that are coming with this new flight sim, We've got all kinds of goodies in there that are really starting to push the envelope as to what a flight sim can do. For example, we've got new collision models. We've got sloped runways available by default. A friction model, and not just friction as far as, wheels on the ground, even though that is modeled, but friction as far as the air affecting the airframe that's flying through it. In addition to which, all of this is being calculated in real time. So if you have, in theory, real-world weather set up, you see how our Cessna is kind of shaking around like that? It will do that in the flight sim. In addition to which, there's such things as icing, which icing is a big one for me. We're only now starting to see developers in X-Plane 11 get into using icing models on their aircraft. Well, folks, this is going to be default with Microsoft Flight Sim. And also, every single aircraft that they're working on, and believe me, they're working on a bunch, they're all going to be vetted by subject matter experts, whether it be company representatives, pilots, so on and so forth. So no more of this guessing game, and definitely no more of these lookup tables. If you are an FSX and P3D user, you know all about lookup tables. Those are now a thing of the past. Instead of modeling one point of reference, they're modeling 1,000. So we're once again comparing real life versus the sim. What you're seeing right now is, of course, in-sim footage. And you can see all of those factors come into play that I just mentioned in the last segment here. So we've got the humidity, we've got updrafts, we've got downdrafts, we've got turbulence. Everything is all modeled. And I dare say that this press footage that we were given looks a damn sight better than the GoPro footage of me actually flying around with Cat. I can actually see what's going on in the world, and that is the part that just absolutely blows my mind. When you talk about technology coming around, this is it right here. And folks, they're in it for the long haul. And I really can't stress that enough. One of the things that we all felt as we were going into this event on that Thursday morning was, well, what happens when Microsoft is done playing with the toys and wants to go home? Folks, they said it, and I believe it, and it was even said by one of the last remaining members of the ACES studio, who also happens to be an F-15 fighter pilot or former fighter pilot. They're in it for the long haul. They're looking like 10 years ahead here. They're looking at pushing the envelope. They not only thanked us for, keeping the community alive, and of course the third-party developers whom, if you haven't been contacted yet, more than likely you will be relatively soon because they want to work with you. But as far as all of us who have basically kept flight simming alive, they recognize our great importance, and they even went so far as to apologize for all the screw-ups that they have done in the past. They realize they can't do this without us, and I think that was probably the part that impressed me the most about everything that I got to experience at the Microsoft event. When you can actually sit there and apologize to a group of people who will tear you down in a heartbeat at the most slightest screw up. Yeah, you've earned my respect on that one, Microsoft. Seriously, you have earned my respect. All in all, the only thing that kind of left me with a bit of a question mark is the fact that this whole project started in VR, but every single developer that I spoke to, even though they've all mentioned that they have VR and use VR, they still couldn't guarantee me that VR was going to be available come launch. But for now, you know what? I'm going to let something like that slide because I think I've impressed upon everybody that I spoke with, especially the fabulous developer Sarah, who had a very long discussion with me about it. VR is the way of the future, and this sim needs to be in VR. But With that having been said, the stuff that we're going to be getting, I know that you, the viewing audience, are going to love. I'm talking about stuff like SIDS and stars, full SIDS and stars as part of the default experience, an interactive checklist so you can fly from cold and dark and go through the entire thing. And of course, everything is in 4K rendering, but you can always scale that down because they've designed this for just about every computer in mind, except of course the potatoes. Now unfortunately folks, I have barely scratched the surface of everything that we were told and everything that we got to experience, mainly because I wanted to keep this video relatively short. I wanted to make it a 30-minute video. If you really want to see a long form video where we touch on every single thing that was discussed in Seattle, you're going to want to go over to Nova Wing 24's channel. I'll have it linked in the video description below, and you can catch the well over hour-long video that Tristan, Sergio, and myself put together for the 3 Grumpy Simmers. We answered every question that we could possibly think of, and you may not have known it, even though we really couldn't tell you that we were going to Seattle. We were actually collecting questions from the Facebook forum that we currently run so that we could bring those questions to Microsoft, and your answers are all going to be there. One thing I do want to touch on, because I think probably the most asked question is going to be, what kind of computer am I going to need to run this thing? Well, let me put it to you this way. If your computer currently is set up to run VR smoothly, by that I mean you have a great graphics card, you have a fast CPU, preferably something with multiple cores and a high clock speed, you've got an SSD, or maybe you've got a combination of SSD and HDD hard drive, that will work as long as you've got something like 32 gigs of RAM or higher, because I asked the devs what their specs were. They couldn't tell us about the computers that we actually use, and I imagine they probably wanted to put their best feet forward. However, what they used, the kind of names that they were rattling off in their computer, is pretty much what I have seen throughout the flight sim community. So don't worry just yet about setting up the ultra mega beast computer that you can't afford right now, because everything's going to be subject to change anyway. And honestly, I think Microsoft is aware that not everybody can afford the best of the best. But with that having been said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up for now. So I do want to thank all of my colleagues for meeting me there. It was awesome to see all of your smiling faces. And of course, I want to give a massive thank you to the members of Microsoft and the Sobo Studios, as well as all the various affiliates that helped to put this event together. You guys are the real MVPs as far as I am concerned. All the folks at the Hyatt Regency were also gems. I really appreciate your service in making us feeling most at home. I gotta say, Seattle has always been on my bucket list, and I'm really extremely grateful to be able to check that one off right now. And of course, the folks at Rainier Flight Services for opening your home to us and allowing us to go fly your Cessnas all over Seattle. Thank you. And I'm going to save the biggest and best thank yous for 2 individuals in particular. Sarah, the developer, thank you so much for talking with me throughout the course of the afternoon and listening to my ramblings about VR, as well as Miss Catherine York. Thank you for being my CFI. I will fly with you any day of the week, and I can't wait to get back to Seattle to do it all over again at some point in time in the future. Alright, but that'll do it for me, folks. This is BelGeode signing out. And if you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will catch you on the next one with something new and different. Ciao!